Wow! We took care of the time travel paradox. All right!
Yabba dabba doo!
Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is the Broken Meeple, a show where I rave and rant about board games, but usually more the latter part. This is a quickie speed review for Take Time. This one literally just came out of nowhere at Essen for me. I get there, I didn't know what Libelube was doing, I wasn't even sure if they were even going to be there in any capacity other than just releasing old stuff that they did, usually under the Asmodee banner. And then all of a sudden at the press event, there's one booth with one person and a ton of stuff just set up with all these big standees and table and all this sort of gorgeous clock looking stuff with a jumbo sized version of this game out for Take Time. What on earth was this, I thought? Well, apparently this is a co-op group game with limited communication. So remember all those games like The Mind and The Game and The Gang and The Crew, which, honestly enough, is that actually meant to be a series because they're all called The something? They came from different publishers though, I am curious. But those sort of games have been hit and miss. Generally, I do like the limited communication games. But it's half and half, because the game, not a particularly fun game. It's just the game, it's a bad title, and it's not a particularly good game. The Mind can go burn in the 7th layer of hell. That is just guesswork, it's not even a game, it is terrible, deal with it. But there are The Crew and The Gang, and The Crew and The Gang are fantastic. The Crew is a great co-op trick-taking game. I love it. It is on my shelf. Get the Deep Sea one if you can. You know, it's a bit easier to deal with the objectives in that one. And then The Gang, if you watch my review of it, you know I love that one. I love Texas Hold'em Poker. The idea of making it co-op poker is great. And every time I show it to people, you know, there's mixed feelings about it because not everybody is into limited communication and not everybody's into poker, but when people like it, they love it. We play about 5-6 games a row and it's just so much fun. You know, I do love that game. So, Take Time, okay, another limited communication, I'm intrigued. Well, this one comes in a bigger box than the rest of them, and the idea is that, well, let me tell you in more detail.
Get on with it.
So Take Time comes with 12 pouches with 4 scenarios in each, so you're certainly getting your replay value. I'm not going to spoil later ones, and believe me, I have not looked at all of them. We've only played, you know, a bunch of them. We have not played all 12 times 4 of these things, okay? But I'm just going to show you ones from the first chapter, the first sleeve, because these are the introduction ones. So the idea is that whichever scenario you're doing will come with a clock face. So I'm going to pick like the last one in chapter 1 for this. And essentially what happens is that the rest of you have 3 phases to deal with. So first of all, you have a discussion phase. This is where you can communicate. All these clock scenarios have got specific prerequisites of what you are trying to do in order to achieve it. Primarily, you are playing cards to the clock face, some face up, some face down, and these cards are in day and night form and they're numbered 1 to 12 each, so 24 cards. But you're only going to get dealt about 12 of them over the course of a 3 or 4 player game. And the idea with this is that before looking at your cards, you have to discuss what your strategy is for the clock. Then you go into the actual playing of the cards, where you take it in turns to play one card at a time, at which point you cannot communicate at all. It is a silent game. But what you're essentially trying to achieve is all of these clocks are split up into 6 segments, and each of these segments needs to have at least 1 card on it. Sometimes they need to have more, sometimes they're fixed. And the idea is that after everybody has played the cards to these segments, they must adhere to certain rules as given by the scenario. There is one governing rule, which is that none of the segments can add up to more than 24 in a value, but then they come with some other restrictions, like for example, you know, this one here, this one must be the closest to number 6. Here, in this segment, I have to play only 2 cards, and one of them must be day, one must be night. But then others come along saying you can't play certain cards, or this one has to be played first, and then this one second, this one has to be between the values of 20 and 30, you know, there's all sorts, and I'm not spoiling much there. That is like literally like the first few scenarios there. It gets more wacky later on, trust me. And the other thing is that all the segments, starting from the clock hand, have to go in ascending order. It doesn't have to be consecutive, but the first segment must be the lowest value, then the next, then the next, then the next, leading up to the 6th one. So there's a few little like major things that you got to deal with, the 24 rule and the ascending rule, but then you've got these other little quirks based on the clock. And basically, that's kind of like the crux of the game. So I'll get dealt, say, these 3 cards in a 4-player game, You know, before I've looked at them, we've discussed, right, okay, so maybe you should go there one first, you should go there second. Well, what are we going to do about that 6? Well, I mean, should the first person play the 6 immediately if they've got one? Okay, and if no one does, then we get the idea that no one's got a 6. Okay, cool. If we've got high cards, we go for that last segment and make sure that adds up to the highest value we can get, that kind of thing. What we're going to do about this one with the day and night, where you've got all the day cards, and there's certainly the vast majority of them, so shall we let you take control of that? It's these little things that you can discuss. Then I look at the cards, and then it's a case of playing the cards around the clock in such a way, without communicating, you've got to try and sort of suss out, why has somebody gone there? With the cards that are there, what's that value likely to be? They know what we've got to achieve. Will my card help this process, or will it hinder it? You know, and there's an element of guesswork, but there's an element of sort of social deduction in there as well. So, and that's kind of it. So once you've done all those card placements, you reveal, check if you've won the scenario. If you haven't, try again, in which case, you know, you are allowed to have some of your cards face up as per the player count. If you fail, you can flip over these little tokens that give you bonus ones, so you can kind of like have another go, but with a little bit of assistance. If you keep failing, then you have the sleeve of regret, which I quite like, which is basically the sort of I couldn't beat the scenario, the shelf of shame one. But if you beat the scenario, then whip out the next one, do the next clock, rinse, repeat.
Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey.
So firstly, production quality. I mean, this one sold for about 20-ish euro at Essen. I think you can buy it for about 15 quid or something on certain websites. You know, we're talking 15 to 20. That's a good value for this game. I mean, firstly, it looks great. It's a nice small box. It's just got a typical sort of cardboard, you know, cardboard packaging in there, but everything fits so snug. These sleeves perfectly fit in this box, nice and snug. But look at the art and design of this. I mean, these cock faces, they've got like, you know, really nice sort of pictures on the middle of them. You know, the back end of it still looks really gorgeous. These cards, they've got, you know, they're very clear. It's easy to read them. Maybe the 9 and the 6 could have been a little bit clearer, but they've got identifiers so that you can tell them apart. But, you know, they're lined with, they're sort of like gold embossed or whatever, you know. So they've got like the shiny gold like you see on stuff like Rivers of Gold. Do you remember that game? You know how that board looks? It's similar to that. And so these cards look striking and lovely. I mean, I have sleeved these because I do not want these getting damaged. You know, they are just nice cards. Tokens are fine, and the sleeves themselves, again, gorgeous by artwork over them. It holds the sheets in there nice and easily. It's basically a little pouch. And then you've got rule sheets and everything, and you've even got a little pouch for the cards themselves, so you don't even have to use a baggie. It's a very nice production. I mean, let's face it, it's Libelud. Libelud doesn't know how to make anything ugly. It's physically impossible for them to do that. And, I mean, remember, I think Libelud was the one who did my Seasons game. Yeah, you've seen how much I go crazy for that one. So, you know, this one is just a gorgeous looking game for a very cheap price. And I did mention replay value. Remember, I haven't gone through all these pouches, okay, but there's typically 4 scenarios in each, okay? 4 scenarios in each. In fact, I will just double check that that is what they say in here, because they usually have contents here. So, what have we got here? 10 chapter sleeves, each containing 4 clocks and 1 rule sheet. Okay, so 10. I thought it was 12, but apparently it's 10. Maybe there's 1 or 2 others in there and kind of weird stuff. But, yeah, you're talking at least, bare minimum, 40 clocks to deal with. And these are tough scenarios. I mean, it's not easy to beat this game. You know, this thing can go up to God knows how many levels. You remember the crew? The crew going up to like crazy levels of difficulty when you go through the scenarios? You can fail hard on the introduction clocks. It's pretty tough, especially when you've got 4 of you to mess around with people's minds and to, you know, well, not mess around with people's minds, but you've got more minds at the table. 3 player is 4 cards each, 3 people. 4 players is 3 cards each, 4 people. So, you know, it's a little bit harder to coordinate 4 of you than it is 3 of you. The 2 player actually works surprisingly well in this as well, because you essentially you still have 12 cards, but you basically only have like 4 at a time, and then once you've played cards, you then get the other 2. And there's just basically a timing aspect as to when you see the rest of your cards. It's a neat little quirk, and it means that 2 player can work surprisingly well in this. I think I prefer to play this with 3 or 4, but, you know, 2 player is still a valid option. I saw people at GridCon playing this 2 player, and they were having a good time with it as well. So, you know, it can work at all 3 player counts, and obviously there's no solo mode for something like this. Who would need it? But, you know, the game is a very simple game rules-wise. It's not difficult to learn. It's not difficult to teach. It's just nice and smooth, you know, very elegant, but quite tough. Now, the whole limited communication aspect is pretty good, I would say. I've mentioned the ones that I like and dislike earlier, and I said about the mind being just guesswork, because it basically is. Here, it's kind of half and half. There is an element of guesswork because yes, you are familiar with what ratio of day and night cards everybody has. Everybody knows the conditions for the scenario, but you still don't know what numbers everybody's got, and you only get dealt 12 out of the 24 cards, so, you know, your ability to deduce which number everybody's got is unlikely. But if they put cards on certain spots, depending on how many cards are already there or based on what you've already discussed, you can kind of make some educated decision that is like, right, so I placed a card there, you've also placed a card there, so you know that's got to be no higher than 6. So if I've put a 2 there, you've probably only put something like a 1, 2, or 3 there. It's probably a low one, so okay. And on that basis, you know, if we've got low ones over here, I'm holding 1 or 2 of these in my hand. So that means these ones over here are probably quite high. You know, you can make some deduction and some logical guesses, but there is still an element of guesswork. You know, you will be able to figure out that certain places are going to have certain cards, and certainly you're going to have, like, the decisions, you know, to make with it. But there will be an element of guesswork as well. You can't entirely figure it out, but then you couldn't do that in the gang or the crew anyway. But what I'm saying is that this is not just a luck fest. There is skill to this game. You know, it's kind of half and half. But it does make it easier to play. It does make it easier to sort of get to the table. But blimey, the tension. The tension in this game is pretty damn high, because while you're playing through the discussion phase, it's all good. Okay, we're going to do this, and that can take as long as you want it to take. But then once you get your cards, and you start thinking about where you're going to place them, because you don't know what your cards are until you've done the strategy. So it's like, yeah, we're going to focus on this and do this and this. Right, great. My cards are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh boy. It's like, I can't help with the top bits, guys. And you can't tell people that your hand is like this, but based on your actions, you kind of have to try and give them the impression that, yeah, I don't have very many high cards, guys. I can't help with these ones. So, you know, but that, it means that not only are you thinking with the group, but you're also thinking yourself, where should I place these cards then? Because I'm not really going to help on these high value segments. I need to put them on the low ones, but I need to do it fast before everybody else does. They're probably holding high value, so let me put that one on there first. And you know, they're going to need to know exactly what that middle segment is. So you know what, I'm going to, you know, my one high card I've got here, I'm going to reveal this one. We're going to face up. That is a 12. So, okay, we're going to make that a 12. Everybody is aware of this. Okay, cool. Hopefully they'll figure out why I did that, you know, and you don't discuss who uses the flip reveals. You do that whenever. Not even the first player gets discussed. You might say, well, are you going to go first then? Doesn't matter. If somebody's got the value card that is going to be useful for a spot, you don't decide on the first player. You just look at your cards, and then somebody immediately goes like that. You know, okay, wow, he was very quick off the mark to put that card down. That probably means it's the value we wanted. You know, it's stuff like that that makes this quite ingenious, but also very tense, because during the game you've got very little idea as to whether you've done well. You will fail this game more times than you succeed, so you're definitely thinking like, oh crazy, have we actually you know, got this? Oh, I'm a bit worried about that segment. Or even when you've got your last card and it's like, well, I've got to put this 3 on something. It's like, where do I put it? And it's like, oh, those two look really close. Which one do I do? And yeah, you can argue there's an element of guessing. Like, you may have a 50-50 choice. You may find that it's mathematically impossible for you to do it, you know, based on what cards are out there. But you don't know it when you're playing the card. You know, you might think, oh, I had to think so hard about that, and it made no difference. You still lost. But you're going to be thinking, you're going to be like, you know, you're going to be worried. And that leads to a good little fun game. So I was actually quite surprised by this, you know, it came out of nowhere. I thought, okay, the premise sounds cool, but is it going to be fun enough just playing number cards and trying to get them in sequence? But it's cool, you know, some of the later scenarios do give you some very funky little puzzles to try and solve. You know, they come with a very useful rule sheet in each one, so it clearly explains how each of them work, so you never have like FAQ moments ever. So you've always got information to hand. It just looks good, it's well produced, it's smooth, it's elegant, and it's another cool one in that lineup. I don't think it's as good as the gang or the crew. I would say those two are still better, but those are benchmark games for this. I mean, they're 9 out of 10 games for me. You can almost argue they're close to 10s. You know, they are just really good fun games. You know, so they're the ones that I say, right, this is the best of the genre. Well, this one's easily a good third, you know, and I do mean a good third place. I'm giving this one a solid 8 out of 10. It's a great game. I've really enjoyed this one. I do think that you know, the fact that there is an element of sort of guesswork in there does mean that, you know, some people are going to think, oh, well, you know, we were kind of screwed anyway. But, and, you know, it's limited to 4 players, so you can't play this with 5 or 6, where some of those other ones you could, you know, there is that aspect. But, and 2-player is still good. I think 3 and 4 is better, but I still think the 2-player is decent enough in this. So, you know, there is a lot of potential for this one, and maybe that will go up. Maybe it will climb to a 9 in the future, you know, as I play through even more of the scenarios. But, you know, for the first few, like, the first, like, few sleeves that I've played for, I think we've played through scenarios in the first 3 sleeves, you know, getting through there. So that's a good, like, you know, 12-odd scenarios in here, and there's obviously plenty more to come. And bear in mind, I'm playing this with different groups, so I can't use the later sleeves for new groups. They need to be able to learn the early ones, but it's still going to give you a challenge one way or the other, so it doesn't really matter in that regard. It's just good. It's very solid game. Really enjoyed it. Very surprised by it. I'm going to hang on to it and see if it grows for me in the future. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Lots of SM reviews already out. Lots of SM reviews still to come, so by all means, check out all the content. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you enjoy it? Do you hate it? Which one of those limited communication games is the most fun one for you? Do you think I'm wrong about the mind? I hope not, because the mind is terrible. But, you know, we all like different things, but seriously, I do not like that game. But, you know, this one is still very solid, so by all means, let me know what you think of it down below. So take care, and remember, regardless of whether you know what time it is, it's still only a game, so bye for now.